Afternoon, we are back jumps racing. I am Pete, also known as Risk for Rewards on Twitter. If you don't follow me on YouTube, you might want to subscribe here just because I'm going to be doing more video content this year because I don't have the time to write up half the analysis for big races such as today's race we're going to cover is the Charlie Hall Chase. So straight into it. I'm not going to beat around the bush. It's a good turnout this year, but for me there's only really three runners you want to concentrate on. We look at the likes of Sam Brown and Paint the Dream. They've got the possibility and the potential to win, but is this really their task? And Sam Brown would want it real much of a bog. So I don't see them winning. Secret Investor, I know a lot of people are thinking, oh, well, if he's tuned and fresh, because he's got a good record fresh. And looking back to his Grade 2 win when he beat Clanderzobo, he's got every chance. I've been a big fan of the horse. I put him up a few times. He's done me a few favours. But I think pure and simply in there, he's probably been working at home with Bravemansgame. And he's not so much going in as a pacemaker, but he's going to be up front to pester the lead and for Bravemansgame to work backwards from, if he knows whereabouts he is in the race. He's a Grade 2 horse, and you'd argue, okay, today's a Grade 2, so he could easily win here. But the problem is it's a Grade 2 on name, but for once we've actually got some Group 1 performers in here. So I think he's in there purely with Briney, get a nice tune out of him, go off from the front, stop Ahoy Senor getting an easy lead, and they should go hammer and tong out in front. Could he go all the way? Who knows? If Ahoy Senor is undercut Bravemansgame, he's got a chance, but you need something to underperform in order for that to happen. Eldorado Allen, brilliant record, fresh, but fits in the Secret Investor category for me. If the other two at the front end of the market fail to fire, then he's got the capability to win. But coming up to Group 1 level, again, he doesn't tend to perform to that sort of level. The Royal Pagal win is good. He won fresh first time out, beating Hitman last year in the Holden Gold Cup, but Hitman pretty much threw that race away, as he often does, in my opinion. I think he's a horse that just doesn't follow through with his effort. And Eldorado Allen, despite his best efforts, and again, he is one that if the front two fail to fire, it's his race to pick up. But for me, there's two Group 1 horses in here today, which is rare to see in Charlie Hall. It's often quite a damp race, but this is a full hammer tong for the first weekend of proper national hunt racing, and that is Ahoy Senor on Bravemansgame. Plenty of speculation on both ways. People are saying the prices are wrong, and it's hard to disagree because Ahoy Senor is now 2-1 up, but both those two defeats of Bravemansgame have both come at Aintree at the end of hard seasons. Ahoy Senor's target is working back from the Gold Cup. So is Ahoy Senor is currently looking around 9-4. Bravemansgame is 6-4. But people are basing it on the fact that Ahoy Senor is the better horse, so therefore he should be a shorter price. In Ahoy Senor's favour is the fact that the track is going to be closer to a more galloping, more conventional track for him to really get going, and he's got winning form there, as opposed to at Kempton, which was a tight, sharp track that was never going to suit him. This is all good attributes for Ahoy Senor. But if Ahoy Senor's plan is to say win at Aintree again, win on the Gold Cup, and last season, every race he tended to improve and he got sharper and sharper. That could have just been the fact that he'd never jumped the fence before that he got better, but it also looked like he was a big brute of a horse and he was getting used to jumping fences, he was getting fitter on every stride. So are the yard going to have him ready and fit to fire, bang, big time, ready to go, knowing that the Gold Cup's going to be the main aim? In my opinion, no. Does that mean he can't win tomorrow? No, of course it doesn't. But it means that he's going there, say the horse goes there 85%, 80% fit. If they go round there, they have a really good run, get some good jumps into him, and he finishes second and third, is it the end of the world for them? No, because I think they've got bigger targets on the agenda that they expect this horse to pick up throughout the year. So he might have a big target at Christmas time, so he may have another run in between this. He had plenty of runs. Just looking back to last year, he had 6 races last year. So this is just will be one of many. He picked one up now, then he ran again in November and then again in December. So he could well do exactly the same again this season. What I'm trying to say is the prices may look wrong, but it's probably based on the fact that the yard, the Lucinda Russell yard, they're not going to have the gun to the head first time out. The aim is the Gold Cup and they're working back from that. His first big target will probably be, I don't know, maybe around Christmas, January time to try and pick up some Group 1s going forwards. If they pick up this Grade 2 on the way, perfect. If the horse is too good for this field anyway, then perfect. As opposed to looking at Bravemansgame. Yes, he's a shorter price, and if you said, okay, what should they both be? Maybe they should both be 2-1. If they both had a run and they were both coming here, if this was in December and they both had a run here, and they both won their run easily, nice little workout, both looked sharp, then okay, you could argue that Ahoy Senor could be favourite, or they could be 2-1 apiece. But the difference is a lot of the market pricing is going on what they're expecting. Paul Nicholls likes to have his horses ready. He's already running at a hot strike rate at the moment, and he will have this horse at least, I'd say 90-95% fit, ready to go, because this horse, he says this horse has got one target this year, and that is the King George. So if that is true, that is the equivalent of Ahoy Senor being in, say, February next year, where Lucinda Russell will have him almost ready to go, and then bang, 6 weeks the Gold Cup. Bravemansgame is going to need to be there or thereabouts, so this is his last big spin, turn the screw, and then bang, the King George is the big run. So, but Nicholls, he hasn't mentioned this race in the build-up. He's been talking a lot about, okay, we might go to Ascot, we might take in a small chase here as a little bit of a scooter. But part of me is saying that maybe they've gone here just to think, okay, I want to test the water and check that we've got the horse that I think we've got. And then the other part of me is thinking that he's showing enough at home, they've turned the screw enough that he's saying, yeah, bang, he's ready for this. And if he's ready for this, then okay, yeah, Ahoy Senor might turn out to be the better horse, but Bravemansgame should be the horse for tomorrow. Saying that, he might not be. He could be at 85-90%, come on perfectly, ready for his big run in the King George. But for me, if you're finishing behind, say, we know, well, in my opinion, I don't think Ahoy Senor is going to be 100% tomorrow. So if you're finishing, say, 3rd or 4th behind Eldorado Allens and horses like that, me personally, I don't see how you're turning that round in 7 weeks' time to win a King George. Like King George, Allaho's not going to come out. And even if Allaho comes 2nd or 3rd, he's coming 2nd or 3rd to Group 1 horses. He's not coming 2nd or 3rd to Group 2, Group 3 horses. So I think Paul Nicholls will want to see a big show from Bravemansgame. Even if he doesn't win, he is going to have to be going close, and he's going to have to be putting in a good run. He's going to have to put that entry well behind him, and I think that's why he's running here, because he wants to point and prove. If he goes out there, he's 95%, and he goes out here and he puts in a good show. If he's just beaten or he wins quite well, then bang, roll on to the King George. There's no way he can have him 90-95%, and then he can roll on to King George and then bang 100%. So I think the reason the pricing is in that orientation is because of what the expectancy is from the yard and for how far forward they are at this current time. So for me, I think the negative for Bravemansgame is this track will suit Ahoy Senor better than Kempton did. But Bravemansgame is going to have to be, he is going to be a lot closer to being on point for me. So tomorrow, if picking a selection, I think Bravemansgame will come out ahead of Ahoy Senor. Is it a strong bet for me? No. Why? Because there's no reason to have like a really solid bet when you don't know the fitness, and everything I've just told you is me judging on what my belief of what the trainers' creature of habits are, how they like to have their yard, the yards are running, their fitness. And so I expect Bravemansgame to put in a good show tomorrow. And if he wants to win a King George, I think he's got to go close tomorrow. Ahoy Senor doesn't have to do that. Ahoy Senor could knock a few about. He could run really well, finish 2nd or 3rd. Come out in 6 weeks, he could go better again. Come out again in 6 weeks, go better again. Everything for them is towards the Gold Cup and then to Aintree. So I think their seasons are in reverse. And Bravemansgame's coming towards the end of his season, even though it is only the beginning. Nicholls has been so adamant, King George. So for me, Bravemansgame's the selection. He is a short price at 6-4, but it's not the end of the world short price. And also the King George, obviously 4 or 5-1. If you're at the belief he's going to win tomorrow, then you should probably take that price for the King George. If you're at the belief that he's not going to win tomorrow, then maybe you should take a price on one of the other horses. He could win tomorrow, win really well, and then Allaho comes over for the King George, and then you could be in a bit of trouble anyway. But at the same time, you've got to try and plan in advance. I already backed Bravemansgame for the King George back in March before they even started talking about Allaho running the King George. So I am on him. Do I think he's best suited to tomorrow? Perhaps not. But do I think he's the horse that's most likely to be ready? And will I be disappointed if he's beaten by Group 2 or Group 3 horses? Then yes, I am. So for me, the selection is Bravemansgame to win the Charlie Hall Chase.